Hey there, sixth graders. I am here today to introduce our next lesson. We are going to be learning about the mean or the average of a set of data. So before we begin our lesson, there's going to be a few activities we're going to be doing today. We're going to be, I'm going to be reading a book about some students who are going to be they're putting on a popcorn sale and they're trying to find the best way to sell all their popcorn. And then we're going to be doing an activity where we're going to be analyzing a set of data of a women's hockey league and their average goals scored during their first 6 games. And then you guys will be doing creating your own data set by rolling a dice and keeping score or keeping track of what you guys roll. We'll get back to that later. So right now, I'm going to share my screen a little bit so we can dive right into our lesson. So before we begin, I want to go over some key vocabulary with you guys so you guys have a better understanding of what to look for during our lesson. So to start, here are 3 of the main vocab terms that I need you guys to remember before we start this lesson. Now, even though these look a little bit overwhelming, I'll give you guys a short and sweet definition for them, okay? So the mean is a measure of center in a set of numerical data, okay? This is computed by adding the values in a list and then dividing them by the number of values in that list. Okay, so for a better understanding, basically, you're going to have a set of data, and I'll show you guys an example here shortly, and you would add all of those values up together, and then you divide that number by the amount of values there are. So if there are 6 data points, you're going to divide that number by 6, or if there's 4 or 2, okay? Now the median, this one is much easier to understand. The median is basically the middle, okay? It's a measure of center in a data set of numerical values, okay? The median is in the list of values. It appears in the center of that data, okay? So just try and remember median, middle, medium, middle, between small and large, okay? All right, now the mode is the number that appears most often in your data set. And this can be tricky because if you're looking at, say, a bar graph, which I'll show you in a moment, it's going to show right where that number is, and you're going to know that there are a lot of those numbers, right? If it's 7, you're going to know, and it's all the way at the top, then you're going to know that that is definitely the most prevalent number. That's the one that you see the most often. But in a number line, say, where all your values are bouncing all over the place, like 3, 7, 2, 5, 7, 7, 3, 5, 2, 1, 6. Then you kind of have to break it down and really determine, okay, well, there's 3 7s and there's 4 5s or whatnot. It's the number that appears the most, okay? So here is a bar graph that I have. Kind of like what I was explaining. And even though over here on our x-axis, we don't necessarily know the value over here, but I can kind of tell because there's how many lines. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. But we're not 100% sure that that would be right because it could be 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, okay? But we're not necessarily looking for that. Right now, I'm just kind of looking at this graph to kind of show you guys that it is pretty clear that we know what our median is. What's right smack dab in the middle here is 7. Okay, we can also tell that since it's all the way at the top of our graph here, it is the one that is the most appears the most in this graph, correct? So we know that 7 would be our mode as well, okay? Now, as I said, we don't have the x-axis here, so we're not sure what it is. So we can't necessarily determine the mean, But if we did know that it was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, then we would know that we have 1 4, 1 5, 3 6s, 5 7s, 3 8s, 1 9, and 1 10. And you would add all those numbers together divided by the number of values we have down here, which is 7. Okay, so that is that. Now, a few other terms that I wanted to introduce to you guys because you are going to see them later and as we go deeper into finding mean, medians, and modes. And that is the first quartile, interquartile range, and the third quartile. Yes, it all sounds kind of silly, but if you look at this number line that I have here, it makes much more sense rather than just reading the definitions to you guys, okay? So once you find the median of your set data, okay, you can determine the median of the lower part of the first quartile, okay? Here is our middle. So you can kind of see here we have these numbers. And you find the median of this first part, okay? This is the middle of our second part and the median of our third quartile. Quartile just kind of seems like a silly, difficult word, but when you look at it like this, it makes much more sense. Okay? Everybody with me? So now I'm going to take the time to just read over this book for you guys. The Popcorn Project. It's a really great book because there are some great illustrations on graphs. Whoop, where are we? Whoop, here. That create a set of data points and what they're trying to do, and they find the mean, median, and mode of what they're trying to sell, how many tins they did sell on specific days, and if they lowered the price, what would be the best price that they would be able to sell the most popcorn? What are people willing to spend based on the average tins that they've been selling? Okay, what the middle price would be where they could sell the most popcorn. So I'm going to go ahead and read this story, and then we will start the next part of our lesson.